adjust it here. All right. Hello. So this is something I've wanted to do for a while now. I've been interested in just creating some videos, basically for me. Listen, I don't know how to put this, but I am selfish. I am a selfish person. If anybody knows me, they know I'm selfish. I'm mostly doing these videos for myself to remember things. So often I will go watch videos or lectures or something, and I will think of it in my own words, and try to come up with it. Like, how could I come up with this thing if I wasn't told about it? How would I learn the logic of it? And I sort of go through that mindset on things, but then after a while I forget what it is, or I'll forget how did I come to that conclusion. So I'm basically doing this for myself. But yeah, so the thing I kind of want to start out with is, what is the basic logic? So my goal I've been working on for a while now is I'm very interested in psychology, economics, history, game theory, probability, mathematics, physics, and kind of combining all those together, but more on the psychology, sociology standpoint, given probability, looking at biases like overconfidence, egoistic bias, social desirability, fundamental attribution error, just all those sort of things, endowment, backfire effect, zero risk, IKEA effect, and all those things as well, and look at the probability distribution of those, how they affect each other, variance, covariance, standard deviation, Gittins index, Bayes theorem, all those kind of things at play. But I kind of want to start out with the basic groundwork to build off from, and it's kind of a tricky idea to get. Basically, it's epistemology and metaphysics, kind of that knowing and reality. And basically, what is understanding? There's this great video I saw with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he's talking about what is understanding, and he gives a scenario. He gives a scenario. So this guy goes for a job interview, and they're talking to him, blah blah blah. And one of the things they ask him, well, do you know how tall this building is? And the guy's like, well, I actually do. I majored in architecture, and I learned, the top 200 buildings of this town. I know that it is exactly 255 feet. And that was the correct answer. But another guy comes in for an interview, and he gets asked the same question. And the guy's like, you know what, I really don't know. But give me a minute. I'll go outside. I know how tall I am. I'll measure my shadow. Then I'll measure the shadow of the building, and I'll, create a variance thing and compare the two and find it out. He ends up going out, he does all that, he comes back, well, it's about 250 and some change. Now, it took him a lot longer to get to the answer. He didn't even get the exact answer. He got an estimate. It's around there. And then, you ask the question, who would you rather hire? Would you rather hire the person who knew it right away, or the person who didn't know it, but they figured it out? And in most situations in life, in most jobs, you're looking for the person who's trying to figure it out. They may not know the exact thing. I'd rather have the person who can find it rather than, hey, he was told this. He never did the mental capabilities to get to what it is, to the answer. He just knew what it was. Then there's also another scenario. Let's say you're taking a test and you have to spell the word cat. One kid spells cat, C-A-T. Well, that's how you spell cat. That's good. Another person spells cat, but they spell it K-A-T. That's wrong. That's wrong. Is it the wrong way to spell it? Yes, it is. But then somebody else spells the word cat, and they spell it W-A-B. That's wrong. But that's equally as wrong as with the K. And you can say K is a better spelling. You can argue K is a better spelling. So it is that sort of black and white thing that you need to take out, Feynman also talks about, the why, the infinite why question. And he describes, I remember watching a thing about him talking about, let's say Aunt Mary fell on the ice. Well, and she went to the hospital. Okay, well, how'd she get to the hospital? Well, she got to the hospital because the husband called. And for most people, that makes sense, right? We fill in the blanks. There's a thing called the Kuleshov effect, where we see one image, we see another, and then we see another. And I can talk about this in another video. I'm not going to talk about it now, but it basically says that we fill in the blanks. We fill in the blanks. This often happens in movies or television. We fill in the blanks. Also in books. There's a lot of things, if you're asked about reading a book, how do you picture this person? You might picture them in a certain way, but the book never told you how to picture them. You might fill things in. We do this all the time with our lives. It's a big thing, but nobody really talks about it. I'm getting off track, but let's say that back to the scenario of Aunt Mary. I think that was her name. Aunt Mary falling down. I think I came up with a generic name. I just threw out a name, but Aunt Mary falls down, and for us that's normal. Let's say an alien comes down, and they say, well, why did she fall? Well, it's due to gravity. It's due to planets, masses, and things of that nature. Then you can ask, well, so she fell, and why did the husband call? Well, the husband cared about her well-being. Then you might conclude from just that one slice of information that all husbands care about their wives' being and health and all that, but not necessarily. Some husbands might, they might be drunk, they might be mad, they might be getting into a divorce or whatever, and they don't care about their wife's well-being. So you can't conclude from that. You can say, well, why did she slip on ice? What is it about ice that makes it slippery? Well, when water freezes, it expands. And you can say, well, why does water expand when it freezes and most things shrink? Well, that goes into chemistry and molecules and stuff like that and the inner physics of that, which I don't fully know, so I'm not going to talk about that. But when ice expands and you stand on it, the pressure makes this very thin water layer. That's why it's slippery. That's why you slip. Okay. And you can keep going on and on and on and on the infinite whys. Bertrand Russell also talks about our knowledge by acquaintance, which is another variable in understanding. And he's describing the color of a table. The particular shade of color that I'm seeing, many things said about it. I might say that it's brown, that it's rather dark, so on and so forth. But such statements, though they make me know truths about the color, do not make me know the color itself any better than I did before, so far as concerns the knowledge of the color itself as opposed to a knowledge of being. I know the color perfectly and completely when I see it, and no further knowledge of it is even theoretically possible. Henceforth, the sense data that makes up the appearance of my table are things in which I have acquaintance and things immediately known to me, just as they are. Now, what Russell's getting at is that we compare things. We don't know anything in and of itself. We only know the thing in relation to others. If I were to ask you, and this is using extrapolation methodology, let's go much bigger and much smaller. If I were to ask you, how big is the universe? Well, it's big as. How small is an electron or a quark? It's small as. We're very comparative. And that's one of the problems with learning. We're very comparative. We know things in and of ourselves in our experience. I could say certain linguistic words that describe things, but it only makes sense if we both know those words. And that gets into linguistics, linguistic determinism, linguistic relativism, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which was a big idea in the movie Arrival, and things of that nature. But yeah, I think that was just the starting thing I wanted to get at. And I know earlier I was talking about, I think, a parable with the two fish, which I think is interesting. I'm going to leave off with that. So the way this story goes is there's these two young fish swimming along, and they end up crossing paths with an older fish. And as they're swimming by, the older fish says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And the two younger fish swim along, and one of them looks at the other young one. He's like, "What the hell is water?" And what I love about this is it gets to this deep thing. Like, a lot of the simple things in life are just hard to talk about, because it's there all the time. We just don't notice it. It's kind of like that saying, like, the easiest catch is the hardest fly ball, or the easiest fly ball is sometimes the hardest to catch, or the open goal is the hardest one to shoot, or the open shot. But I think that's very interesting, and I'm definitely going to enjoy going down this path. I have a lot of things I want to talk about, dealing with physics, epistemology, metaphysics, psychology, sociology, philosophy, and just the interplay on all those using game theory, iterative deletion knowledge strategy, Nash equilibrium, probability distributions, and all that kind of stuff. I'm definitely going to enjoy going through. If anyone else is interested in this kind of stuff, definitely would love to talk. I know there's the idea that I have anything worth value of saying or putting into the public lexicon is a foolish endeavor on my part. I mean, there's 7.6 billion people in the world. The idea that I have anything worth value of saying is just, it isn't a good read of the room, if that makes sense. And also, you look at human history, most people were wrong all the time. At the pinnacle of science, bloodletting was the way to go, and a lot of smart people thought that that was the case. Some people probably didn't. But yeah, I think it's very interesting stuff, and yeah, thank you.